Yo, what's up? Scott Storch, chilling over here at iStandard Beat Camp.
So this is the Behind the Rhymes interview with Scott Storch. Scott, in case these guys have been under a rock for the last 15 or 20 years, how did you get started in the music industry? How did you get started in your production game?
You know what? I was a member of the Roots. I started in 1993 with them. I was a founding member of the Roots, and just marching on in Philly and playing live on the streets, borrowing power from the stores on South Street. Got a record deal in '93.
Okay, cool. What were some of the first pieces of equipment you bought as a producer?
MPC 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
Banged out. Were you a big sampler when you first started?
No, not so much. I was always, that's the nature of what I do. It's like all live stuff.
Okay. And working with the Roots, what type of creative chemistry did you guys have when you were putting records together, or when you were actually in the studio?
You know what? Everybody knew their part. Like, for me, it was always like the chords and the tone center. Hubs on the bass, Questlove on the drums, Black Thought and Malik B on the vocals.
And as far as what you've learned with working with them, how do you take some of that experience and take it with you when you're producing now?
Well, you know what? Playing in a band is definitely something that gives you some depth to your production and understanding the way live bands work and stuff. And then just being around Questlove and watching him play the drums. So when I'm doing some stuff that has that boom bap live sound versus the drum program stuff, it's like you get that it's subconscious. You realize it's in there somewhere. It just comes out.
Just comes out, right?
Yeah.
So when
tones, everything.
So when you were first coming up, who were some of the people that maybe you were inspired by or really looked up to in terms of production in general?
You know, when I first started making music, I was heavily into the native tongue sound of rap, like the Jungle Brothers, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest. And it was, for me, early on in my, my writing and production, career, I saw that as a good avenue for me because there was a lot of Fender Rhodes and piano stuff in there, versus sample type.
So let's get into a little bit in terms of some of your experiences. What do you think is the biggest piece of advice or the best experience you've had that you really you take with you almost every day when you're creating?
You know what? I think it's something that Jay-Z told me one time at the Hit Factory. He told me, he said, people got to do what they do best and just always, use that as their weapon. And for me, it's the piano. So I just always try to emphasize and make sure I'm doing something smart in the piano.
So what motivates you daily just to make music in general? What keeps you how do you celebrate the small successes?
I love music. If I was, I'd be happy playing piano at a bar with a tip jar.
So as long as
I'd rather be a poor, wedding piano player than be a rich lawyer. You know what I mean?
So on the come up, I think there's a producer grind out there. A lot of people always look at the artist. The artist is always grinding, but people don't realize how the producer grinds. What was the producer grind like when you first started? How did you really get to this point?
I mean, I guess it was hitting the pavement, man, and I have so many memories of, running around New York and hustling CDs of beats, in these offices and, cruising, walking around the city and going to every label. Right. And just soliciting myself, If you don't solicit yourself and push people to listen, A&Rs,
right.
I mean, over time it grows to seeing the presidents and the heads of A&R and this and that, but you got to start somewhere and hit these offices because you might catch somebody's attention. The squeaky wheel gets oil.
Right. What do you feel is your greatest accomplishment to date?
The greatest accomplishment? I guess, it's the volume. I guess I sold 350 million records in my career.
Wow.
And growing.
Has there ever been a time where you really felt like somebody should have had the beat but really passed on it? Was there ever a time where you were so passionate about this is your beat, you need to be on this?
Yeah, I mean, things end up going different places. I made, hit records and I pushed them on a certain A-list artist and he wasn't feeling it, but another one was. And I told you so.
Maybe Lean Back?
No, not Lean Back. But I tell you what, I didn't make the candy shop for Fat Joe. And he was like, nah, that don't sound like a hit.
Oh, man.
Oops.
Do you feel like the relationships you've had over the years have really been your ability to work with different artists and is it better for you to work with the artist directly, or have you had to go through management?
I mean, it's a little bit everything. It's definitely good. I mean, to have an inside with the artist and penetrate, especially nowadays, because you know, a lot of management teams and production houses and stuff, they have their own inside producers that they have equity in. So they're gonna push their artists to work, you know, with those producers. And if you can penetrate, and then, you know, it's a big enough artist, they can have their way, and then, you know, you'll get a record on. So it's tricky. Everybody's got their motives in this business now.
What about new artists? You ever like find somebody and say, hey, I really want to work with this guy, and what does that take? Like, what do they have to have in order for that to even happen?
You know what? Sometimes it's not even about a new guy. I think that the greatest challenge for me is reinventing an artist. Okay. Like, and that's why I'm doing. I just signed to my new record label, CCS. I signed Mario. Years ago, he and we had the longest running #1 song in history, "Let Me Love You." And
big record.
Yeah, it was a huge record, but it was somebody else's artist, so.
Right.
You know, now it's my artist, and the records that we're doing are crazy.
Do you feel like the producers finally getting their recognition in the game? Like their identity is finally there. You have people being like creative directors at major labels and also at major companies. Like, you feel like we're in that place right now for producers?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel like in the corporate world of music, there are a lot of retired creative people, and that's a good thing for music, I think, for sure.
That's great. They'll get up for Scott Storch one time. If you could give these guys like one really good gem that you've either learned or you feel that they need to know, give them like one solid gem, man.
My gem is, it gets greater later. That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
This is somebody we feel who's been extremely influential in the world of music in general, not just hip hop and not just music, but just somebody who's been influential in the culture of music as well. So we call this the Influence Award. It's the Legend in the Making Award. Y'all give it up for one time for my man Scott Storch, man.